Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Balearic Yacht Show. Today, this panel is Vaughan's new portal, Yacht Crew Help, and it is sponsored by Onboard Online, and I'm really pleased to welcome this absolutely amazing panel. We have Vaughan, Project Manager from Vaughan. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi. Hi, great to be here. Thank you.
We have Captain Brendan O'Shaughnessy. He's a captain, obviously, and an ISS board member. How are you?
Good, thanks, Rhea. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Karen Passman, she is founder of Impact Crew.
Hi there, Rhea. Lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
And Karen Murphy, addictions therapist and counselor.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. It's good.
Thank you all for being here. Now, let's get into it. Crew mental health. It's such an important thing, and it's something that for years people talked about, but there wasn't really an easy option for anybody to reach out if they were having any issues within the entire, and I mean, mental health is a large sort of umbrella. There's so many different issues within that. But there was nothing that was easy for crew to reach out and get the help that they needed without stigmatization attached, of course. Caitlin, can you tell us a little bit about this new portal?
Sure, yeah. We did some research in 2018 with MHG insurance brokers looking at the welfare needs of super yacht crew, and we really it's an area that an area of the maritime industry that we as a charity weren't so familiar with. We've been supporting seafarers in the commercial sector for 20 years or so with our 24-hour helpline, and mental health has been a big focus of our work, but we thought it was important that we did some work and looked at where the needs were amongst super yacht crew so that we could improve our own services. But I think that the research that we did brought us a lot more than that. Research reports available on our website, but we came together with lots of really great people in the industry who are really interested in the findings of the report, and there are a number of recommendations, and we thought that with our particular expertise in supporting seafarers' mental health, mental well-being, we thought we'd look at that area first, and look at the best ways that we could provide some additional resources for super yacht crew, specifically thinking about their particular work environment and how that might differ from other seafarers working in the industry. And so an online toolkit, Yacht Crew Help, was born. We originally thought, we'll just go out there, we'll promote our seafarer help services as much as possible, and show Yacht Crew Help that we're there for them 24 hours a day with our multilingual services. But we just realized that we needed something much more tailored to super yacht crew, and so that's why we have this toolkit. It's going to offer the same services. We'll have 24-hour multilingual support. There are resources on there, self-help guidance, and as time goes on, we'll hope to have much more in-depth information about some of the other findings in our report. And so we thought that this online toolkit's a great central opportunity to try and catch a lot of these issues, but with a massive focus on mental health.
I saw that you did have some statistics in regards to the fact that when you did this research, I think it was 82% of women found that they weren't able to find any help, or they didn't know where to go for mental health.
Yeah, there was I think a massive difference in, I think the figure you might be referring to is work-related stress, and I think it was around about 50% of, or maybe lower, of male respondents said that they experienced work-related stress, which is still quite high, but it was more like 80% for female respondents. And when we looked at that by job role, we saw that stewardesses fared more. It was 90% of stewardesses had said they experienced one or more episode of work-related stress. And then we did see a massive divide in access to mental health services. So I can't remember the exact figures, but over 50% of women said that they had found it very difficult to access mental health services. And I think it was around about just under 40% for men. It might have been lower than that, but we know generally throughout in wider society that men are less likely to ask for help anyway. So that divide there isn't very surprising.
Well, and that was a question. I mean, it is Men's Health Month, November, and I wanted to ask Captain Brendan, why is it so difficult for men the world over, not just crew, but men in general, to admit that they need any kind of help whatsoever? What is the stigma attached to that?
That's Rhea, that's such an unfair big question on this panel. I'll take it. Look, I tell you, let's keep it on our topic of, I won't speak for all men. I'll speak from my lived experience and seafarers and masters at sea. There's a few layers. There's male provider anxiety. If you are weak, you may lose your role. You are needed there to be strong, to lead others. This is a perception. And any exposing of weakness is sometimes seen as, this one's broke, get me another one. That is a pressure that a lot of seafarers live with. A second one, I think, is the nature of masculinity at sea. It is the jovial banter that's respected, regarded. It can be quite toxic in its own way, and it will shut down and exclude the person that wishes to share more openly. So again, I can only speak of my lived experience. I cannot speak of all men, but definitely for senior seafarers, there is an expectation that you don't show weakness to your team. Any vulnerability may lead to either, the perception may be wrong, but it may lead to dismissal or workplace scorn.
Do you think that women are more than likely to reach out for help, Karen?
Karen.
We'll go with Karen Passman.
I think I just wanted to reiterate what Brendan was saying, you know, in the same vein as we've been trying to bring leadership development to the industry, there's a perceived weakness. If you need help to be a better leader, to be a better captain, then maybe you're not the right person for that job. So I think, Brendan, there's a common thread there running through. I think just generally, I think Karen Murphy's probably better placed to answer that question, but I just think typically women are a little more open to having a chat. Karen, what are your thoughts?
It's hard to say. It depends on what their presenting issue is. I personally have found with my clients, it's about 50-50 at the moment. And I think a lot of this is because of that removal of stigma. And there's been so much publicity around this in the yachting community in the past year that it's the men that I speak to in the practice are quite open with admitting that they want to change and they want help. So yeah.
No, if I can just lead on from Karen Murphy's comment there, that is the good side of it. And I can feel this with my peers. We are speaking amongst each other. I think one of the big things is the senior leaders ashore and afloat need to look to a tripartite where their own and their crew's safety, mental and physical health are viewed in equal measure. They can't be viewed in isolation. It just doesn't work to view a fire drill as keeping the vessel safe if the crew are demotivated, depressed, or incredibly fatigued. So that they're not isolated things. They are together. And that normalizing the dialogue starts in the crew mess, on the bridge, in the control rooms, in the pantries, so that people feel that if I've got a twisted ankle, I will go see the physiotherapist. We only have one body and one mind. They're not separate. If I have a mental health issue, there is zero comment made that I will go seek support. And I hope that needle is shifting in the right direction.
Is there someone on board, or are you planning on working towards the goal of having someone that is assigned on every single yacht, on every single crew, that will deal with those issues if they need to be dealt with.
I think that's an approach that ICE1 would endorse. You know, obviously every company and every boat, the structures are different, and there's not always a one size fits all answer. But you know, and obviously everyone else here could say more about that than me. But we really see a benefit of that. One, you know, a person assigned a mental health officer, someone that we know has the right training, and you know, we have first aiders wouldn't be given that title if they didn't have the adequate training, and it, you know, is seen as a necessary role. Hopefully we're moving towards a time where mental health will be included in that, definitely.
Is there something particular about the yachting industry that is different than the rest of the world, just for the simple fact that people spend so much time at sea? They're in really, really close quarters, especially on yachts. Sometimes they're in a tiny little cabin, you know, one on top of the other. They don't really have much space. Does this wear on mental health more so than, you know, a normal person living in an apartment going to a job every day?
I think it really does. The hospitality industry is global, shore and sea, and it is very tough to get up and do that. As one of the statistics that Caitlin opened with, it does manifest in some of the interior staff. They are a long way from their own normal. Professional seafarers go through a lot of years of normalizing to this environment. Some of our hotel team come straight into it. And if you haven't stepped off for 2 months, for me as a career mariner, that is part of my career that I have put years into learning the tools to process. The hotel team don't sometimes have that lead in. The demands and expectations of the yacht owners and their representatives are really high, deservedly so. They've invested incredibly to underwrite this industry. So their expectations are very high. So if you overlay those two together, there are a lot of stressors in place. And we cannot rebuild our yachts with more cabins and more space. So the onboard leaders and communicators must look to aspects of yacht operations that cause the physical and mental stresses and try to minimize their impact. Again, not trying to reduce the fact that the users of the yacht have very high expectations, deservedly so. So it is a huge challenge to balance that.
Brendan, do you see rotation as forming part of the solution?
I do and I don't. And I might say that from a privileged position of having full rotation for the last plus more than a decade. Rotation means that you work every day. So if you're a 3-month rotation, that fatigue is cumulative, mental and physical. We've only got one fatigue here. So when in the early days of yachting, I was on smaller tonnage, and the rotational, that word was talking about propellers, not people. We went into port for weekends. We lived on that boat. We moved as a little community. We really understood each other. So it was different. I don't see rotation as a silver bullet. I do see that it is needed to keep the large yachts operating. Absolutely, because of the financial investment on those yachts. I do see that they're in old yachting, if we can say that. You went ashore, you left yachting when you started a family. That's sad. We lose our best people at their prime. So it is needed. Is it a fixer for mental well-being? Not at all. Not at all, no. It is also a stressor. You dive in and out of your families. So you're never truly part. You're not on board, but you're not. So you might lose 2 communities. So it has been wonderful. I could not have raised my own family selfishly without it. But Karen, I see it as something that the industry needs because of the size of investment. Yachts should not stop for crew. The employment terms should change to support the yacht's operation. If they don't, then the yachts need to stop to provide crew the chance to return their mental and physical health.
Do you think that there is more expectation of crew nowadays than there was, say, 15, 20 years ago?
I'm going to keep answering. Sorry. So there should be. Yes. Look at the yachts. 20 years ago, morning setup was a couple of cushions on the back deck, a couple of jet skis out in the water. Our standards, if I look back, oh, jeepers, they were not, and no disrespect, yachting was wonderful 20 years ago, but the designers and the operators of these yachts, the expectations have gone up so high. And keeping on mental health, we have so many specialists now. We'll have a spa technician, a hairdresser, massage therapist, yoga instructor, fitness therapist, and they're wearing dual hats. A lot of these people have not had the preparation for that environment, and it's hugely confronting. So the expectations correctly have increased. All of our expectations. If you bought a car 20 years ago, you were super happy. If you drive a 20-year-old car today compared to a new car, where's the power steering? Where's my button to open the car? All of our expectations are higher, yachting included.
Do you think that employment policies and procedures and that those structural things have not moved as quickly, and that might be part of the problem?
They're better. They are a lot better. Really, they are. And I think it is still confronting to some crew working in English as their second or third language to understand all the support structures out there. Going back to ISWAN, the fact that we hope to make this just so ubiquitous, yachtcrewhelp.org, there is support, that's where it is. The other support, contracts, legal crew agreements, all of these things support crew handbooks, expectations. They were the exception 20 years ago. They are now the norm. If a crew member came onto a yacht and all of those weren't in place, the crew members now know to say, look, I need to read a contract. Where's the crew handbook? What are my leave ratios? All those things are just normalized now. So they are there. Are they in touch with society's curve of expectations? Maybe a little bit behind still. Yes.
The nice thing is, though, it is gradually, we wouldn't have this helpline from ISWAN if the industry wasn't saying this needs to be addressed and we're going to be doing something about it. So that's a good thing. One thing that comes along with these mental health issues is substance misabuse or misuse. Karen, you can probably talk to this one. Why do we see quite a bit of that within the industry?
I think largely it's because of most of the things we've just mentioned, the stress, the work environment, the hours. You couple that with a lifestyle that probably facilitates it more easily than other lifestyles. You've got high salaries, you've got global travel to exotic places, and also the fact that it's pretty much everything is very easily available in all of the major ports everywhere. It doesn't matter what your substance of choice is, it's pretty available.
And do you think that it's used more so as a crutch as opposed to, I know some people go out and have a drink maybe every couple of weeks or something, but do you think it's more so of a crutch because they are trying to self-medicate?
That's a tough one. It depends on the individual. The only person that can answer that is the person using the substance. But I think from what I can see at the moment, it's more of a social thing, because crew are quite careful about what they bring on board and what happens on board. But it seems to be more acceptable to use things, substances and alcohol, and misuse it off the boat, because it's it's out of sight, and it's not, then if somebody does have a problem, it's not as evident.
Have you noticed an increase in the past few years, or has it just been sort of the same level of people contacting you that are needing help for different issues?
Well, I've been doing this as a professionally just for the past year. So to be totally honest, in relation to people contacting me with what are considered to be common everyday mental health problems, substance misuse is actually way down there. It's just something that I think unless somebody gets to the stage where it is seriously affecting their life, or they're probably threatened with losing their job, it's unlikely they will ask for help.
So it's not necessarily a matter of they aren't being affected by addiction of any sort, but it's that they haven't actually made that decision that they are addicted.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably it. You know, while they're still sort of managing everything and it hasn't come up as an issue with their job or their life, it seems to be something that people feel that they can live with until they can't.
Until they can't.
Until it gets to that stage where they just can't. And unfortunately, I think on yachts as well, it's a lot of things are brushed under the table. You know, unless somebody has a really serious problem or something happens where there's substance is found on board and there's you know, a random drugs test or something, then it's something that's sort of accepted more so than it would be in another situation.
Well, I find yachting is very, very secretive. You know, you don't speak about anything that isn't wonderful or shiny or bright or pretty. Do you think that that is part of the issues with everything straight across the board when we're talking about our mental health, whether no matter what spectrum of mental health you're having issues with? Do you think that's part of the problem, is because nobody wants to admit that they're nothing but absolutely perfect?
I think that's definitely a huge part, because the competition for within the industry for jobs is so severe now than anything short of perfection, whether it be in your work ethic, your what you're producing, your appearance is a threat, because there will be. I mean, I spoke to somebody recently who applied for a job. And when they were applying, they could see that there were 120 other applicants for that same job. So, of course, you know, that is going to be a huge barrier in anybody asking for help, because they will not want to be seen as anything less than perfect or 100% capable, or to have any type of you know, mental issue or health issue that they might have to address while on board.
Karen, if I just lead on there, I agree with everything you have just said. But if I look to this phone call, all of those things have been in the industry for a while, but there are now private and discrete pathways that you, other providers, Caitlin from ISWAN, Karen, now represent that weren't there in the past. All of these problems are not new. We're just talking about them, which is wonderful. And this call specifically represents private pathways for crew to seek help. They did not exist in the past. The problem's always been there. We're just talking about it now.
Karen from Impact Crew, I wanted to ask you, do you think nowadays that crew, the new crew, the green crew that are coming into the marketplace, do you think that they are being informed enough about what goes on in the industry and about what's expected of them prior to them embarking on this journey and getting their tickets? Are they prepared?
I think that's a really valid question. I was actually chatting with some crew this week, and their thoughts were that people are perhaps being encouraged, invited to come into the industry, whether that be through the schools or whether it be because they've seen below decks. And no, their expectations are not being appropriately managed. As you said, you know, everything's nice and shiny. So that's the image that they're getting before they come on board. And the reality is far from it. You know, it's really long hours, it's hard work. You're away from home, you don't get the sleep you need. And they're often not, a lot of them are not prepared for that. They're not aware of that.
Is that something that you think should be monitored within the industry, that perhaps part of the courses that they have to take before they get into the industry is a reality course, but not the below deck kind of reality, but a real reality course prior to going in.
Yeah, I did suggest that Below Decks might like to do our industry a favour and do a 5-minute reel Below Decks to give people the opportunity to properly see what it is like. I think there's conflicts of interest, and I think that's part of the challenge. You know, the schools will want to get the people in to earn their living, and you can't help, you know, crew are going to share the better parts of the jobs, not the worst part of the jobs. You can't help that. I think it's down to managing expectations, whether it be at the recruitment phase, at the induction phase, and I'll defer to the leaders here on board. You know, it's really for them to take those youngsters in hand and help them as quickly as possible work out what the reality is and whether it's the right industry for them.
Caitlin, what is the next step for I-SWAN? What is the next step for this Yacht Crew Helpline? Where do you see this going, and what do you see it becoming?
Well, it's always a difficult one when you're working to try and solve a problem or have a solution there for people to talk about growth. But I suppose first, the most important thing to say is that we are going to launch yachtcrewhelp.org on the 24th of November. So from that day, there will be 24-hour multilingual confidential helpline for crew, and as I've said, a number of resources for the future. We want to keep building on what's there, and where we can find helpful resources in whatever format that is to address, you know, the issues we know crew are experiencing, then we'll put there anything that could be contributing to poor mental health, low psychological mental well-being. Anything we can do on that website, we will put there as free resources and links to other useful organisations, because, you know, we're a small organisation and we can be there offering crew instant support on the phone, but there are lots of other areas that aren't for us to be looking to solve. But what we do really try to do is make sure that we have a really strong relationship across the industry, so that we can point crew in the right direction where possible. So I think there's lots to still be done, but my biggest hope for Yacht Crew Help is that every crew member, before they join a boat and while they're on it, know that we're there and can access us easily.
Well, and how are you going to make sure that happens? Like, how are you going to make sure that every yacht, is there going to be some sort of notification on the yacht that this is where you go or this is who you call?
Well, yeah, there's a number of things that we're working to do. Just to mention as well, Karen, and Brendan on this call are three of the people that have really helped to make this happen, driven this from the beginning. And part of what Brendan and his network have done, the Super Yacht charities have funded 5,000 stickers to go out on boats. So the idea is that eventually we've got a number of other sponsors and funders coming in to help us with other promotional methods, but the stickers is, I think it was Brendan's idea, so we'll have one on every dunny door that we, and that's the aim. But we're also working with a number of colleges. We're working our way through there to make sure that crew get as much promotional information about this as they're coming into the industry. And we're just doing what we can. We're speaking to whoever we can whenever possible, getting that information out there. Social media is obviously really important.
Caitlin, you'll be delighted to hear that of the 5 Super Yacht crew I was working with this week, one of them already had the notice on their notice board about yachtcrewhelp.org. So it's getting out there.
Brilliant. Yeah, so there's loads to do, but we're trying knocking on every door that we possibly can.
Well, and if people want to contribute to this, to help this, to push this forward, to talk about it, donate money, they just go to the website, and there's many different contact you, and there's many different ways that they can help this move forward.
Yeah, definitely contact me, or as soon as we launch, there'll be different opportunities, all hopefully very obvious for people to get in touch there as well.
Wonderful. You know what? This has been really informative for me. And I hope that we've done you justice, because I think this is really, really important. You know, we have so many different options in onshore. And I think, you know, crew didn't have those options, or they didn't know they had those options. So the fact that you guys have come together and created this, I think, is a phenomenal thing.
Thanks so much for having us and giving us the opportunity to talk about it.
No, once again, Caitlin Vaughan, project manager from iSwan. We're going to provide all of this information down below this panel. And as well, if there's any questions that you have while we're chatting, just after we're chatting, because we can't talk to you while we're chatting. But please do ask, and we will do our best to answer them. Again, Captain Brendan O'Shaughnessy, Captain and ISS board member, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Rhea. Rhea, if I just, one moment, I think what's really important to say is yachting's never been better. We are in such great shape as an industry. The fact that this discussion is happening and we are realising that the real value of yachting is the crew.
Yes, that's very important to say, for sure, it is. Karen Passman, founder of Impact Crew, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
And of course, Karen Murphy, addictions therapist and counselor. Thank you, Karen, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, once this panel is over, please do feel free to wander around the Balearic Yacht Show and check out all the booths and everything else that is going on. We thank you ever so much for joining us. And please do visit the website and do what you can to make sure crew mental health is a thing that we talk about and is a thing that is okay and a thing that we do better for in the future. We'll see you soon.